What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. I'm the host, Devin. Sherdog.com is the website. I have a special guest today, right over here. Where is he? He's the Dayne Fox. Thank you for joining me. How's it going, man?
It's going great. I am very honored to be here. I appreciate it, Dev. So, yeah, I'm not very good with graciousness, so we'll just put it that way. Not that I'm not grateful for this. I'm just bad at expressing it.
Oh, dude, I'm appreciative that you're here. This will be fun. I wanted to get someone on here. You're the perfect guy. Really cool and interesting weekend of fights. Well, really cool, interesting pay-per-view. Prelims, if you like Mortal Kombat. Some really, really interesting fights. Some pretty gruesome injuries. I think someone got hit in the head with a hatchet. I don't know.
That's putting it lightly.
Or maybe it was just Big Norm's forehead. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Starting off, we don't have a final segment of the show because there's no fights coming up this weekend. So starting off, out with the old, Merab Dvalishvili is now the men's bantamweight champion of the world. He defeated Sean O'Malley. 248-47s and a 49-46 were the scorecards, if I can recall correctly. Before we talk about the fight, how did you score the fight?
I had it 49-46 Merab, but I wasn't going to argue with anybody who gave it a 48-47. Was it the fourth round? I can't remember.
I think it was the third and fifth were the two that.
Yes, the fourth one. Okay, the fourth one was the other title fight, but yes, you're right. The third and the fifth for O'Malley and Dvalishvili, and yeah, I gave the fifth to O'Malley, but at the same time, for a 48-47 fight, it was about as one-sided as it's going to get for a fight that could be scored 48-47.
Really similar to the Bilal Muhammad Leon Edwards fight, where it was. You remove the scorecards and you just watch the fight and you say, who won this fight?
Yeah.
Pretty damn clearly, Merab was the winner. What do you think of excessive coaching?
Oh, God. I had never heard of that. That was, holy crap. I mean, I can understand where it is a rule. You don't want the other corner deceiving the other guys. I get that. But at the same time, I can see where it's gamesmanship. And this was an issue with regards to Aljo when he was fighting O'Malley. But at the same time, Aljo was claiming that he didn't hear them calling his name. So I don't know how much truth there is to that. Aljo prides himself on being an intelligent fighter, and I would like to think that if he did hear that and he went, he would probably deny it to maintain, He also claims that he was legit hurt when he won the title from Jan. I'm not going to go one way or another on that, but yeah, the excessive coaching, holy crap, man. I don't know where to go with that. It's almost like Herb Dean was just trying to make up for
lost time.
Yeah.
Literally lost, though. Like, keyword lost, where he is, it's like a basketball game where there's the one lost kid, like in PE class, that's just chasing the butterfly on the basketball court. That's Herb sometimes. Since this was UFC Noche, I called him La Mota Dean because he was definitely on something. Can he get excessive reffing? Can we call that?
I think it's fair. There was a sequence where Merab was kissing. That sounds so weird to say. Where Merab was kissing O'Malley.
Loved it.
No, I agreed. I thought it was freaking hilarious and absolutely humiliating for O'Malley. Not necessarily that I wanted him to do that, but just because it was funny. So Herb goes in and he tells him to knock it off, and Merab takes that as okay. He's
stopped the fight.
Yeah.
He jumped in and touched his back, which is the same thing as stop the fight.
Yep, exactly. So I don't blame Merab for standing up there and thinking that, because a lot of people were like, well, no, O'Malley did the right thing. The round wasn't over. And that's true. But had he actually not scored a knockout blow there, that 100% would have been on Herb.
You could see the anger in Sean O'Malley's face after being kissed while he was chasing down Merab.
Yes.
One of my coworkers was like, man, that card, those two back-to-back co-main and main event was terrible. And I'm like, man, he's more of a casual fan. And I was like, man, you know, I love watching somebody expose a champion's flaws and kind of do something masterful. And both Valentina and Merab really did do that. It was not the most entertaining, but for guys like me and you, I found it awesome to just, like, he kind of broke O'Malley in there. He had him throwing, kind of clowning him with when he throws a spinning wheel kick and he's doing the look, you know. Merab fought a really smart fight. He did everything right. He didn't take all the crazy risks he normally takes with the striking. And something that's kind of been slept on in his game that I've really keyed in, I think he's a really good leg kicker, and I think it's just not talked about enough. Like, he ruined Petr Yan's leg in their fight. When I was doing my pre-fight tape study, I'm like, Merab was really like landing all over the place. A lot of leg kicks all over Yan. And I mean, he seems to be a guy that is just really, like, not only does he take you to deep water, but like, he's that kid that in the pool that grabs your legs and pulls you under to F with you. Like, that's Merab's game. After the Petr Yan fight, there's a moment where they're in the octagon together, and he goes to give Petr Yan a handshake, and Petr Yan is like down blocking. After the fight, he's so just like scrambled. He sees Merab's hand coming toward him for a handshake, and he's, you know, literally down blocking. And then in this fight, like, after the first round, he kind of seemed to have O'Malley just flummoxed. It was strange, and he really exposed O'Malley's front foot game. Like, when he's not a slick pullback counter guy, like, what's he doing on the front foot? Yes, I mean, everybody's looking at this Cheeto fight and they're thinking, well, look what he did to Cheeto. Well, I mean, when Cheeto fights, is like he's got 2 feet stuck in concrete. He has no footwork. He couldn't cut off O'Malley. He couldn't find him. He didn't want to get on the front foot against him. Only in the last 2 minutes of the fight did he say, okay, well, let me go for it.
Well, with the first time O'Malley and Cheeto fought, was during 2020. So it was a pandemic. The UFC saw O'Malley's star potential as soon as they signed him. So you can say I know that there's people who will say, oh, the UFC doesn't groom people to become champion. No, they absolutely 100% do. And that's what they were doing with O'Malley from the beginning. And they pit him against Cheeto because they saw Cheeto as a favorable matchup for him, which 100% was true. And I think that was exposed in the title fight. I'll concede that it was a bit of a freak injury in the first fight, but it was still a legit loss for O'Malley. He'll never admit that. You know, he's continued to deny that. But, you know, like you said, the UFC was purposely trying to get O'Malley to the point where he was champion because they see big money potential in him. And they got there. You know, he became champion. He's not I don't think he's finished as a fighter by any means. You know, he's still only 29. And I think he's going to see this as his first true loss. And part of that is because
Merab. Did you see his tweet?
Which one? I saw him just basically say that he's going to take off 9 or 10 months. Is that the one you're referring to?
No, he said he won 2 of the last 3 rounds of the fight, so he's the winner. So it's like, enough. Like, this is, and then he's like practicing his sprawls like after the fight in the back, and it's just like,
yeah. No, but what Merab does, he does something that nobody else can do. With his relentlessness, with his cardio, with his wrestling, nobody else can do that the same way that he does. And because nobody else can do it, it's impossible to prepare for it. Like you said, he broke Petr Yan mentally. He broke Cejudo. I think he would have broke Cejudo even worse if that had been a 5-round fight. You know, that's what Merab does. And he did that to O'Malley too. I mean, I'll give O'Malley credit. He didn't break as bad as Jan did. He was still trying to fight at the end, but you could tell his cage was completely rattled. He was not in the right headspace that he has been before. Like, even when Jan pushed O'Malley still had his wits about him. He was still able to put forth a good fight. He was calm, composed. He wasn't composed at the end against Merab, not at all.
His corner. So I could and should probably bag on the corner a lot more than I'm going to, with the like yelling at Merab before the fight started. He came out today and he posted, he admitted to doing it. He said, if me and my best friend are going to war, yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And it's like, dude, do you not have enough confidence in Sean's skills where you've got to kind of like, shit. You don't, if you're going to drag race somebody, you don't put a knife in their tire before you race them. Like let the race happen as it's supposed to. And then the fastest car is going to win. The better fighter is going to win. I just find that weird. Like, you never see guys like Javier Mendez and that team. When those dudes go to war, they're confident in their preparation. Khabib isn't yelling obscenities when he's cornering Umar or Usman or Islam, so just a very different mentality. I found that strange. And maybe he thought it worked the first time where he did the go Aljo, and he was telling Merab, calm down, because he knows Merab is very like, it's I'm not saying it's not smart, but I do think it's a little bit shady. And then between the 4th and 5th round, he told him, okay, we're almost done. It's almost time to go home, or something along those lines. What do you think of that?
He did go home. I mean, I'll give him that.
You're not going to die, Sean. You will go home. Maybe it's like motivational stuff, and I'm just not aware of their coach-fighter relationship.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm not 100% sure what he meant by that, to be completely honest. But at the same time, coaches and fighters have a unique relationship typically. Coaches should know what it is that's going to get their fighter to bring the best out of them, especially when they're downtrodden. The question that I have is, has O'Malley been in that situation before where he's downtrodden? Because, I understand that there's hard practice and all that fun stuff, but it's impossible to replicate what's going to happen in a fight unless you're doing the hard sparring like they did back in the days with Miletich fighting systems and shit like that. But that'll also short circuit your career. You have a limited shelf life in that case. So I just think that he was doing whatever he could to motivate him. Probably didn't know what to do because Sean had never been in that situation before.
Yeah, and that was a big part of my handicapping was like, yeah, everybody says how much volume and how Sean O'Malley showed that he's a 5-round fighter against Cheeto. And it's like, well, it's really easy to hit a heavy bag for 5 rounds, but like, what happens when that heavy bag is got a bottle of nitrous attached to it? Like, what do you do? And just technically, Merab looked really good. His outside footwork looked good. His leg kicks looked good. I really like that he stayed on the outside and used his speed. His entries are really good. He's a much more of a single leg takedown kind of guy. Trip you up, make you post on one leg.
Yeah.
But in this fight, he didn't have really any success with the singles. It was all the doubles, getting the double and then cutting the corner or the takedowns against the cage. The second he actually got O'Malley up against the cage, it was just like curtains for him. The knees to the side, the big punches, the ground and pound. Merab had a lot more control in this fight, which kind of tells me what we probably already knew about him, that he enjoys the pursuit of the consistent chain wrestling, and
Yes.
It's not about taking people down and controlling them. But what he showed was, if I've got a really dangerous long counter striker, I can just take him down and control him too. The front headlocks where he was kissing. I know it's funny, but like that front, he jumped guillotine in this fight. And then immediately, even though he lost the position, immediately just gained control in the scramble again.
Yeah.
And then the front headlocks, like hanging all over Malley, making him tired. It's kind of a masterful fight for Merab.
100%.
It was great.
Yeah, no, he you could tell from the beginning, you could tell that O'Malley was worried about the takedowns, and rightfully so.
Oh,
That also paralyzed him. He, we talk about how it was a masterful game plan from Rob, and it was. But I remember like the first 2-3 minutes wondering, what's Merab doing? He's standing and trading. He's not going after the takedowns. And I think he was just kind of faking out Sean. Like he got into his head right away, basically because of that. Because Sean was like, okay, when are you going to come for me? When are you going to come for me? And when he finally did, he did it with emphasis. That first takedown was actually pretty emphatic, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, no,
and then allowing him to get up and just hitting him on the brakes, tying up the wrist, tripping him, kind of just shoving him back down into the mat. It was a lot of like also kind of similar to Dricus in a way, with just the pretty punishing ground and pound, like in transition when you're kind of almost allowing the opponent to get back up. That's going to expose them to land some ground and pound and some pounding shots against the cage. And I just love watching Merab fight because it's so weird. And like it's such a one-off weird, like the greatest fighter in the world doesn't really finish anybody. But he could climb like 30 mountains in one day, and that's what wins him fights. Just Merab's story is awesome too. Like the dude came over here from Georgia, started off as a construction worker, made nothing, literally won on looking for a fight. He was supposed to lose there. Dana was there to see Rafion Stotts. Now he's a champion of the world. I'm pretty sure within the last year, he's become a U.S. resident and the UFC champion.
Yeah.
Which is just impressive. It's cool.
Yeah. And, I do want to throw out that, you say that he's a champion and he doesn't really finish anybody, but he breaks people.
Oh, yeah.
He breaks people, and that cannot be denied. And because he does it in a way nobody else can do, like I've already kind of touched on that. That's what makes it enjoyable for me. Nobody will ever break Peter Yan the way that he did.
I 1000% agree. And if you're listening to this, or if you're a fan and this reaches you and you have a favorite fighter and Merab's beat your favorite fighter, because Merab's probably beat a lot of people's favorite fighters. Aldo, Yan, Cejudo, now O'Malley. Like he's beat a lot of people's favorite fighter. If you don't like it, tell your favorite fighter to do something about it, because it's a fist fight.
That's a sport.
That's my best advice. You don't like it, go knock him out. Go stop his takedowns. What's next for Merab? Who do you think he should fight next?
Bantamweights. If it was anybody other than Merab, it would be a little bit hard to decipher just because there's so many contenders. But Merab has already beat so many of them on his way up there. He beat Cejudo. He beat well, I don't know if you would necessarily want to call Aldo a contender at this point, but he's beat Yan. So it comes down to the two that he hasn't beat, and that's Sandhagen and Nurmagomedov. And given the fact that those two already fought and Nurmagomedov won, it's obvious it's got to be Umar that he fights next. I know that he's saying, I'll hold off on that and fight Figueiredo, but Figueiredo's he's got 3 wins now. Who did Figgy just barely beat?
He's the first person that dropped Cheeto his
That's
last
right.
time out, and then he beat Rob
Cheeto.
Font
and Garbrandt.
And Garbrandt.
Yeah, that doesn't count for too much, but
It was his first time at 135, and he stopped them.
He did. But yeah, Garbrandt's he's not the Garbrandt that we knew that won the title, but.
I think the Garbrandt we knew that won the title was never the Garbrandt we really thought he was.
That's a good way to put it. I think that's a better way to put it.
What if Deiveson Figueiredo, he's matched up with Petrion? What if he goes out there and just flatlines him or like club and subs him? Because that's what Figueiredo does to people.
He does. Okay, at the very least, I would have to think about that. Because I know that Merab has already expressed that's who he would rather face is Deiveson. And if we're being fair, Deiveson has a shorter shelf life at this point than Umar does. So
Former champion. Umar's last name is Nurmagomedov, and he's undefeated. So he's at the point, in my opinion, where even if Figueiredo goes off and just dusts up Petrion, he's undefeated. He's got a win over Corey Sandhagen. He's probably ranked number 2 in the division. Last name's Nurmagomedov. Habib and Islam in his corner. The dude can probably wait for a title shot regardless, even if Figgy does, fight Merab. If Sean O'Malley was entitled to an easy title fight, there's no easy title fights, but against Cheeto, Merab on this streak, he should be entitled to Figgy maybe as well. But I'm with you. I think Umar Nurmagomedov is probably the fight to make. It's the fight that's going to put the most asses in the seats. And you and I and probably 99% of the world think that they're the best two. And I think that makes all the sense. Sean O'Malley, what do you think's next for him?
It has to be Sandhagen. Has to be. Both of them have been hovering within each other's distance for quite some while. Have yet to cross paths. Both of them are coming off of high-profile losses in fairly similar styles. They were able to take a round or two here or there, but for the most part, it was clear that they lost those fights. It's got to be that.
I went a different route. I think he should fight Henry Cejudo next. There's a lot of history there. There's a clip of him going on Cejudo's show saying, "Why'd you let Aljo take you down?" and then leave. Like, there's just a lot of buildup, a lot of Twitter BS between both of them. I think he'd rather fight Cejudo based off the age and the size and everything.
Absolutely. I know he would.
And Cejudo will do a better job selling the fight. The purist in me would rather see probably just like, what's a cooler fight? Probably Sandhagen and O'Malley. But Henry Cejudo is also a really cool fighter and really fun to watch as well when you remove all of the shtick.
The king of cringe.
Yes, the king of cringe. Moving on to the co-main event, we had Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko defeat Alexa Grasso in a very one-sided decision. How did you score the fight? And let me know what you thought about it.
50-45 Valentina. I understand where people said that it was a boring fight. I'm not going to try to correct anybody with regards to that. But from a technical perspective, it was a fantastic game plan from Valentina. You can tell that she really studied the film of the first two fights, figured out what it was that she could do where she had an advantage over Alexa, and just constantly attacked that. I would say Alexa was aware of what Valentina's game plan was probably going to be as well, because she was attacking with submissions off of her back, and came close on a couple of them. Obviously, she didn't get it, given that the fight went to decision. But masterful performance from Valentina. Alexa looked kind of flat outside of those submission attempts, and the performance was dominant enough that it quashed any desire anybody might have had to see a fourth fight.
Yeah, I agree. This fight made the other two just seem like an aberration.
Yeah.
Something that may or may not have happened. Valentina Shevchenko is probably the closest fighter to GSP.
Yeah.
And the way that they came into MMA and the way that they really changed their style and hyper focused on something and are just very fucking good at it. DC, listening to the commentary, was like, "I'm so surprised to see Valentina Shevchenko wrestle. She is a striker." And I'm just like, deep down in Valentina's heart, she knows that she's a wrestler. For someone that has so much Muay Thai experience, like, her entries are great, her takedowns are good, her control is good, her submission defense is good, her submission ability is good, her ground and pound is great. She gets that mounted crucifix on fucking everybody. Mm-hmm. Got it in this fight. What this fight And what I realized about the other fights was I don't think Alexa Grasso ever fought Valentina Shevchenko with a game plan. And if there was a game plan, there was no plan B. You're not going to win a title playing BJJ off of your back in September of 2024. It's just not going to happen. People are too good, especially Valentina Shevchenko. I don't know what Grasso's game plan was. Was threatening with the submissions, but like not really using them to get up. And I mean, I thought her success would be in the boxing, just catching Shevchenko in those prolonged exchanges, kind of letting Valentina initiate the exchange on the feet and then countering a counter. That's kind of how she dropped her in their second fight. No, Shevchenko just blanked her. She was cleaner on the feet. It got to the point where I was even in the Sherdog Slack. I was just like, Valentina could just strike with her from this point on. And she's already so flummoxed by the takedowns that Shevchenko could just cruise to a decision striking with her on the feet. Mm-hmm. I think she landed like 18 strikes in this fight, like some absolutely ridiculously low number. I'm not sure how to help you with that. My Amazon, what is going off because I said that name. So I'm going to have to call her Grasso. She's always listening. For someone that this whole event was around too.
Yeah.
I'm just, and we'll talk about Irene Aldana as well, but same camp. They kind of probably shared this camp together. I don't know what happened.
So if we take what we know with regards to the first two fights, Grasso talks about how her and her team identified that hole in Valentina's spin kick. And they were able to exploit that, that got them the victory in the first fight. The problem is trying to replicate success off of a tactic as opposed to a strategy. You're not going to be able to replicate that. Now, to her credit, the second fight, I did score that in favor of Grasso. Doesn't mean that I if somebody had scored that for Valentina, I wouldn't have blamed them one bit. It was a very close fight, and to the point that it did end up getting scored a draw. Regardless, Grasso needed to up something because, like you said, Valentina is very similar to GSP. She is very studious, very surgical. And I think the fact that the UFC decided to give this fight a year in between the second and the third fight, that only worked to Shevchenko's advantage.
It should have been Grasso's advantage.
Should have been.
For anyone in the world that you would have asked, probably you and I both, I was like, going into this fight, I picked Grasso. I was like, oh, she's going to buzz her on the feet. And then she showed her, dangerous submission ability, could be a club and sub. I think she's just going to do the more damage. When do you ever see the 36-year-old fighter go back to the drawing board, devise a masterful game plan, execute with brilliance, take no damage, and Shevchenko got better? Yeah.
No, and that's what I'm getting at. Like the fact that she was a year older, because I believe that she's now is 36 or 37, 36, I believe. Regardless,
that's, even if it's 37, even more impressive.
Yeah. Regardless, that's past your prime generally, unless you're Andy Couture, of course. But or
Shevchenko.
At this point, yeah, 100% true. Yeah, no, she you can tell that she studied that as much as anybody had, because as soon as the fight started, you could tell that Shevchenko was cool, calm, collected. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and she did it without any. It looked effortless in many ways, like even when Grasso was threatening with the submissions, Valentina was cool as a cucumber. She had her in that guillotine for what, like 2 minutes, and you could constantly see Valentina just thumbs up. She never felt threatened, even when it looked like she might have been. You could tell she didn't feel that way.
And I love the champion mindset of like, dropping 2 minutes of a round in a guillotine and still saying, fuck you, I'm going to get control back and land enough ground and pound to win to make sure I still get this round.
Yeah.
Because even in those moments, like where Grasso had that arm bar, and I mean, what she did was just, I mean, I brought him up once, but I'll bring him up again. She just Dricus Duplessis her way out of that arm bar, and then was just like, oh, it was like a very much like a little brother, like just you're no match for me physically. I mean, Shevchenko is just, she's got all the physical attributes that you need. Her chin's still there. Her speed still seems to be there. Her entry's over. I mean, she could just be a wrestler for the rest of her, she might do this for another 3 years. Like, do you think Manon Fiorot is going to stop this wrestling game over 5 rounds?
We'll say that I'm very interested to see that. Because Fiorot is much more physically imposing than Grasso. She's probably a more technical striker. I'm not as confident about her ground game, but
she's not a finisher on the feet.
She's not. But at the same time, Grasso was, she did drop Valentina. So we know that Valentina's not impervious on the feet, and Grasso's not necessarily known as being a huge finisher herself. So it's something that I'm very interested in, because Fiorot is a very physically impressive specimen. And she's not exactly a young prospect herself, but she's young in MMA, and I think that she's still got plenty of room to improve in that sense. So I don't think that we've seen the best out of her yet. So, I think that we agree that's where Valentina's going next.
Sure.
Yeah. So no, that fight very much is intriguing to me, especially given that Fiorot was able to largely shirk off Blanchfield's takedowns attempts in their fight. Because, Blanchfield, a lot of people had her dubbed as the heir apparent to the flyweight crown,
I was one of them.
She still may be yet, but she's not there yet. That is a better way to put it. Just, but yeah, it's going to be an intriguing fight.
I think Shevchenko totally has all the tools to beat the next 3 or 4 contenders behind her in this division. I think people like Manon Fiorot that are big and physical, or even girls that are big and physical like Macy Barber, can, possess some potential issues if Macy Barber can get her shit together and be healthy for a fight. It's really funny because both of these last fights we're talking about, there seems to be a very clear number 1 contender, but there's also like a low key in the backdrop that's already made and is about to happen, a low key number 1 contender fight. Like we got Blanchfield and Rose that's about to go down. If Rose goes out there and head kicks Erin Blanchfield, you already know what's going to happen. You already know what's going to happen.
I hope that doesn't happen. Not because I have anything against Rose, just, Fiorot's already beat Rose. She's, to me, there shouldn't be any debate. She's there. She's the next contender. But like you said, Rose is a favorite of Dana White's. I get it. She's scored some of the most explosive wins in strawweight history. That head kick of Wei Li was holy shit amazing. So I get where they would want her to insert her there, but given that Fiorot has that win over her, I would be so pissed if they were going to do that. I really hope that they don't.
And in the same sense, Blanchfield, if she goes out there and gets a takes Rose down, takes her back and chokes her out in the first round, the UFC also seems to really like Erin Blanchfield. It seems to me, out of the 3 potential top contenders, Manon Fiorot is the least liked by the UFC.
I agree.
If I had to put any 3 of them in order, I'd put Rose, Blanchfield, and then Fiorot. How much the UFC, would love to have them in a title fight. And then Rose, like it would sell big names. They've you know, they don't really have a history, but they kind of do in a way. You know, they've been cordial, but I think they've also been willing to fight each other. If Rose is fighting at 125, she's obviously willing to fight Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah,
because she's the champion of that division. Manon Fiorot, she was the backup, weighed in as backup, but we saw what they did to Gamrot. Before we know it, we're going to see Natalia Silva versus Manon Fiorot, and then we're going to see the winner of Blanchfield and Rose fighting Shevchenko.
I hope you're wrong.
And then in the most effed up way, they're going to be on the same card.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think's next for Alexa Grasso?
There's what I think is next and what I would rather see. What I think is next, I think they're going to pit her with Macy Barber, and that's a great fight. You know, yeah, and I don't hate that fight, but that's what I think they're going to do. What I would rather see, and I've actually kind of given this a good chunk of thought. Pit Grasso against the loser of Namajunas and Blanchfield. You know, I very much like the old school Joe Silva style of matchmaking, you know, where you try to pit winners and winners with losers and losers as much as possible. And along those lines, I understand that leaves a little bit of a question what you do with Macy Barber. And my thought that what they should do with Barber is pit her against Natalia Silva. I think that's one of those fights where, okay, if the winner of Barber and Silva impresses enough, it's possible that they could leapfrog Rose and Blanchfield. You know, one of those types of situations. Oh God, you remember UFC on Fox? I want to say 4, where they had Ryan Bader and Lyoto Machida fight, and then they also had Brandon Vera and Shogun, and they said whoever wins most impressively gets the next title shot. If they were to do something like that, you know, let Fiorot and Valentina do their thing, and then kind of set it up so that Silva versus Barber, and then Blanchfield and Rose, if they were to do that, and whoever scores the most impressive win, give them the title shot. That would be my ideal scenario. You know, it gives them something to fight for on both sides, as opposed to saying, we don't know what's going to happen. You know, throw that out there, give them the stakes. That I don't know. I can see where some people don't like that, but I think that would be fun.
It's almost like you want to see meritocracy in the UFC.
Can you believe that?
Great performance by Shevchenko. I think Grasso should probably rematch Barber. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then Natalia Silva's out there. Natalia Silva looked really good against Andrade, and the UFC seems to like her as well.
Yes.
Women's flyweight, you know, it seems like it's back in order. The one thing that's looming out there is if Juliana Pena goes out there and beats Raquel Pennington, that's also a big time possibility for Shevchenko. But let's just hope for the next little bit of time. We don't have many crazy huge stars in the UFC or whatever. Let's just hope champions are fighting contenders for the next bit of time, and we see Shevchenko just stay at 125 for as long as she's willing and defend her belt. And then if she's ready to go to 135, maybe she can give her belt up and go and get an immediate title fight.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 2 division champions, so I'm 100% on board with that.
Moving down to the what do they call these fights again? The one before the co-main, they give them a special name now. We're calling it the third fight from the top.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I do know that they've recently started doing something else other than just the main card, but yeah.
The special fight. We had Diego Lopes defeating Brian Ortega, beat him 30-27. I think there might have even been a 10-8 chucked in there for that first round. Diego Lopes is slowly proving me wrong, and quickly becoming a title challenger at flyweight. What do you think? featherweight. I said flyweight. Sorry.
Because Ortega did not look good at all here. He did not look good in his win over Yair. It was Ortega doing what Ortega does and just pulling a finish out of his ass in that fight, and he didn't look great in the first time him and Yair fought either, He did better, I think, in that fight on the whole, except for getting the finish. So Lopes is definitely good. There's no doubt he's top 10, probably top 5 at this point. This is not me crapping on him, but whether or not Lopes should be fighting for the title next, as I'm hearing a lot of people proclaim, I don't know.
It's one of those wins where it's like, man, Ortega's always been this guy where fighters look good against, and he kind of pulls a rabbit out of the hat, and unless your name is Max Holloway, and he almost pulled the rabbit out of the hat on Volk, even, and he kind of pulled the rabbit out of the hat against Yair, like you said. His one really clean performance was Korean Zombie many moons ago, and he's kind of had more fights like this where they look like this, and he comes back to find a win, but one thing is for certain, this is the most I've seen him hurt on the feet.
Yes.
Which is pretty telling. The first counter combination, that overhand right and then that left hook, just had Ortega rocked immediately. And then he gets dropped again right after that. And then Lopes almost foolishly obliged Ortega on the ground where he probably could have let him come back up and finish him. Brave to, challenge Ortega on the mat, especially Ortega is a very willing and active guard player, and kind of blanked Ortega there too. Ortega had some moments, but his hand speed seemed off. His durability seemed off. Maybe Lopes does hit a lot harder than we perceive. Clearly he hits very hard. And his hand speed definitely gave Ortega a lot of problems here. You heard him again at the end of the third round.
Yeah.
Kind of one of those fights where did Lopes absolutely shine? Totally. But did Ortega maybe suck a little?
Yeah. And that's exactly where I'm at. Like, you're not wrong where Ortega's a magician. He pulls the win out of nowhere. That's his MO. But he typically doesn't look as haggard as he did here. Like you said, he looked slow. He looked like he was taken out of his element right away, just from that early combination that Lopes landed on him. And that's not something that we've seen out of Ortega. Like, even when Holloway was given him one of the ass shavings of ever, he didn't look like he was battered. He didn't look like his brains were battered in. He looked like he still had his mental facilities about him. That didn't appear to be the case against Lopes. It looked like he was immediately taken out of it. So I don't know if Ortega's just taken too many shots to the head and he can't take those types of battles anymore. So, I'm not trying to take anything away from Lopes. I do believe that he's going to get his title shot not right away, eventually. But I don't feel like, I know there's a lot of people who say he should get it right now. I'm not one of them.
As far as, and I think I agree with you mostly there. Like, the UFC seems to love him. The way he took that fight against Dan Ige, the way he didn't lose this third round against Ortega, where Ortega tried to come on strong. I'm just still like not 1000% convinced. And I'm sure if you're listening to this out there, you're probably like, these two guys are freaking high. I don't know. Like, I just don't, I'm still on the fence. Like, I need to see him do that to like Arnold Allen. Then I'll be convinced. I don't think he should get a title shot just based off of the work that the other dudes in the division have had to do. Like look at everyone else's. I mean, Gavin Tucker is a great opponent, but he's kind of gone from Dan Ige, and who was his fight before the Ige fight? He was supposed to fight Ortega, but who was opponent? Sorry,
Sadiq Yusuf,
which is a huge jump in its own. Sadiq Yusuf to Brian Ortega. Dan Ige should have been the fight in between these two fights. I personally do still think he needs another fight before he fights for the title. He showed good power, good hand speed. He needs to fight a 5-round fight.
Oh, that's 100%. Yeah, that was 100% what I was thinking. I don't care if it's main eventing a fight night. I don't care if it's a co-main event on a pay-per-view. But yes, it needs to be 5 rounds next.
It needs to be. I think personally, he should probably fight either Arnold Allen or, truthfully, I think he should fight Volk. And the reason why I think he should fight Volkanovski is, number one, Volkanovski, look what Max Holloway had to do to earn his title fights. So it's only right that he kind of, I mean, yeah, he beat Max 3 times, but they're not fighting. We'll see. I think Volk is playing a game of where he's trying to wait to see the result of Topuria Holloway, because if Topuria wins, he's going to have to go probably pick a fight with somebody. And if Max wins, he's going to think he's going to be, I don't want to say gifted a fight, but given a fight, given a quadrilogy. So I think Lopez should either fight Arnold Allen or Alexander Volkanovski. And I know those are 2 huge different opponents, but I think a win over either one of those guys would prove he deserves it. I think if it's against Volk, it can be a co-main event somewhere, 5 rounds, and he'll beat a champion, and he beats Volk. I mean, shit, you have the golden ticket to a title fight if you get a win over Volk.
I have no problem with that if that's what happens, but I'm of the opinion that got to be the winner of Evloev and Sterling, and that's largely because Evloev does have a victory over him. If Evloev beats Sterling, Evloev's got that case, and I don't think there's anybody that would be disappointed to see that rematch. You know, Lopez and Evloev, if that's what it ends up being.
Or even Lopez versus Sterling, because that's a former champion. Even if it's Lopez versus Sterling, because then at that point it's a former champion.
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at, and I'm with you in the sense that Volk should fight somebody. And for a couple of months I've been thinking that he's the one that should be fighting Allen, because I think Lopez with the winner of Evloev and Sterling is more appropriate. And, you know, again, kind of do the same thing that I was suggesting with regards to the women's flyweight division. Hey, whoever can pull out the most impressive win, you got next.
And I agree. These divisions are just getting so stacked. Like men's bantamweight is good. Even women's flyweight is good. Featherweight, I mean, 3 of the best 10 or 12 fighters in the world ever in MMA history are featherweights, which is just crazy. So even Lopez, for even to be in discussion with these guys is means something. He's clearly doing something right. We're talking about him. Yeah. Fun fight though. The kid's, you know, outside of his haircut, he is on a rocket ship to the moon. I'm
not going to say anything. I'm sporting braids in my beard, so I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. What's his favorite band?
You know, I think Ben would be a better authority on that than me.
Judging, I'm going to go like Census Fail or like Taking Back Sunday based off that haircut he has. Looks like a true emo kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun fight, really, really cool. Ortega should go. I don't know. I think also too, you know, we were talking about his durability. I also do think that these weight cuts to 45 are probably that's what got sick during his cut last time. And then this time he made it, but got lumped up pretty bad. He's spoke about ambitions of fighting at 155. So go up there and just regardless of what happens against Moicano and Saint Denis, he should just fight Moicano in a rematch at 55.
That's right. They did fight at 145. I was thinking Gamrot would be a fun one, but
sure.
I think I'm wrong either way.
Yeah. Dan Hooker's willing to fight anybody, but if I'm Dan Hooker, I'm not. I'm fighting. I'm fighting Dustin Poirier if I'm Dan Hooker. Again, fun fight. And shout out to Lopes for continuously winning. We're talking about a lot of recapping. Most of the show is about a recap because there's no new fights coming up this weekend, which is really cool because this fight deserves us to talk about it. We have Esteban Ribovics defeating Daniel Zellhuber.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember his first name? Via split decision. How did you score the fight? Who do you think won? Is round 3 round of the year?
To answer your last question, yes, round 3 is definitely round of the year. I gave it to I gave it to Ribovics, 29-28. I want to say the first round to Zellhuber and then the last 2 to Ribovics. For being honest, the first 2 rounds could have gone either way, but there's absolutely no doubt who took the 3rd round. And that's despite the fact that Zellhuber was the one that was had all the momentum at the end of the 3rd. Like you said, round of the year. It's hard to really put in a good breakdown of that round just because it was nuts. I mean,
Did you see the video of? I mean, you saw Zellhuber, like he literally looked like the used car lot thingy that's like all flapping.
Wacky waving inflatable tube man. Yeah.
Yes, like all against, he didn't have his wits about him, but there's a it might be on ESPN MMA on Instagram where it's him bobbing and weaving, and then Zhang Weili is sitting down in the background. She's also bobbing and weaving.
Now that you say it, yes, I did see that
with Zellhuber. Close fight. I actually scored all 3 rounds for Ribovics. Yeah. I just thought he landed the more impactful punches in his body work. I think the commentary was really biased the first 2 rounds of this fight, where they were just like, I mean, I'm going to use a word that the kids use, glazing Zellhuber's boxing, where like Ribovics is like landing big combinations and he's landing the bigger punches in the exchange. Yeah, he may be eating a jab, but like he's the shorter, smaller guy. So he's got to walk through some fire to get in and land his shots. He got dropped with that step in elbow. Zellhuber did make a good adjustment in the 2nd round, starting to throw elbows because he was kind of getting stung. Yeah. He would kind of almost watch his work in the pocket where I don't think it was a watching his work thing. I think it was more of just a speed disadvantage where they would enter the pocket. Both of them would, throw their combination, and Ribovics was just faster to get out and faster to land. And Zellhuber was kind of getting caught slipping. So he started throwing that elbow in there, right, like on the offbeat, which was really cool. Fucking dropped Ribovics with that step in elbow, and then Ribovics is like, okay, hold my beer. Yep. Dude, like, stubbed up, tightened his belt, landed that overhand right, and just, I mean, I said this in the Sherdog Slack where, like, in MMA, like, first off, body punching, chef's kiss in MMA. I love when I see body punching in MMA, but like, we just don't see enough uppercuts thrown. It's like uppercuts are only thrown by like championship level guys. There was moments there where like, if Ribovics would have just got a collar tie when he was like, when Zellhuber was just doing like, just get a collar tie and hit him with Justin Gaethje style or DC style with like 3 uppercuts. Just
I think you're right.
Just get the overhook and just wham, and then finish with one over the top. And that's, kind of just pin him and hold him in place. I'm critiquing a really awesome performance from both of these guys though. both of them showed tons of bravery in the pocket. Both of them did their thing. They both got $50,000 as they should have. 1000% deserved fight of the night. Incredible fight. Sad to see these guys that are this young in this career kind of have to, I don't want to say do this to each other, but they could have both fought, an older vet, but no, they put on a show. The UFC knew what they were doing with this. The matchmakers, you see fights like this and you're like, man, you're kind of taking your toys and you're bashing them into each other. But sometimes you got to do that to see which one your favorite is.
And it's hard to say which one really has the brighter future. Because yes, Ribovic's got his hand raised, but I'm not convinced that he wins that fight every single time.
No, I think that fight is literally a coin flip every single time. Yep. That is one of the most good thing those dudes aren't sparring partners. You kind of get it with sparring partners. Like you kind of, even like with Gilbert and Usman, like based off of the vibes, I felt like Gilbert probably beat Usman up a lot in sparring. Based off the vibes, I feel like Merab probably beats up Aljo a lot in sparring. Yeah. And Aljo probably slaps on random subs. I kind of, and so it's a good thing these two guys aren't sparring partners, because they took years off of each other's lives. And shout out to Zellhuber for getting, a lot of people would have quit on themselves there. There was moments where this fight could have been stopped. That one moment where he was just so dazed, he fell over onto his side. He got back up. This was like two stray cats in a dumpster, just freaking scrapping. Round of the year. Who do you think Ribovic should fight next?
Oh boy, lightweight's a hard. I
got the perfect name for him.
I've got a couple of names. The question is what the UFC wants. Do they want to see him grow and progress and be challenged by a vet? If that's the case, I say Carlos Diego Ferreira. If they want to put him into another potential firefight that will completely accentuate his reputation as an action fighter, Mike Davis.
I'm gonna say a name, and I think you're gonna be like, nope, that's the guy. Drew Dober.
That covers both. That covers both because, wily vet, but at the same time, if you're going to get into somebody else that might be able to give you the fight of the year, it would be Dober.
And the reason why I say that is because they both have that Terrence McKinney, similar opponent. Drew Dober is in the 15 to 20 range of that division. Ribovic is moving up. I'm not saying Drew Dober's moving up or down. I think he's just kind of at a point in his career he's moving laterally. And if he beats a guy like Ribovic, then he gets a top 15 fight. Carlos Diego Ferreira is another really good test. I think he's just outside the top 15 in the UFC's rankings, or maybe right there at 15. He's good. And he's tough. Walking out to the Roy Jones Jr. music. He had that moment with Roy Jones Jr. after the fight where Roy Jones was like, hey, next time you fight, call me and I'll walk you out to the octagon.
I forgot
That's
about
dope.
that. That's right.
That's dope.
That's very cool.
He kind of stole the show in a way.
100%.
Also, too, with a fight like that, with the scoring, because a lot of people were like, Zellhuber should have won that fight. Look, in my very humble opinion, when you got 2 rounds as close as those two, but Ribovic wins the 3rd round the way he won it, in my eyes, that's always going to be the winner of the fight.
Yep. It's taking a little
dirty
side scoring into it, but there's a reason why a lot of people preferred the pride scoring system. So
if Zellhuber would have walked away with that dub, I would have just felt a little dirty.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, that kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it's not me saying I don't understand how you get that score. We both agree that those first 2 rounds were very close. So, yeah, it's not me saying I can't see it. But, yes, that's my thoughts exactly. You know, given the way that third round went, and that's not to say Zellhuber didn't have some good moments there. He did, but I can't see anybody watching that round and saying Zellhuber won that round.
It's one of those where, like, if your spouse was with you, you know, and he or she was watching the fight, and they didn't really understand MMA, and you're like, who won that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'd be like, oh, you know, not the guy that almost died. Really, really awesome fight. Round of the year. I don't even know if it got mentioned in the Sherdog yearly awards. If it didn't, it's a sin, and one of us should hop in there immediately and put that fight in there. It should be talked about, even if it doesn't win round of the year. I think Max and Justin round 5 will probably win round of the year because, you know, name value and all that.
Still, like you said, the nomination at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nomination at the very least. Incredible fight. And shout out to both guys. Moving on to women's bantamweight. Yes, women's bantamweight, a division that does not get talked a lot about on Check the Kick. But when there's fights like this, we're talking about it. We have Big Norma Dumont, defeating Irene Aldana via unanimous decision, 30-27s on all the scorecards there. I think that's how it went. Yeah, and Aldana looks like somebody walked up to her and hit her in the head with a freaking axe. What do you think of this?
Sure.
Have you seen like the pictures from the UFC doctor that the UFC doctor took?
Yes. I was being a jerk today at work, and I kept calling people to my
look at this.
Look at this. A couple of them were like, oh, "Why would you do that?" Because it amuses me. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, that was straight out of a horror film. Tom Savini could not have done better work than that.
It's fucking like Texas Chainsaw Massacre shit. It literally looked like someone took a meat cleaver and walked up to her and just thumped her right on the head with a freaking meat cleaver. Yep. It came from a clash of heads, but then clearly it just continuously got opened. I mean, it was like a scar that went near her eye up to her nose. Her under the eye is all split open. You know it's bad when John Anik is in between rounds and he's like, yeah, she's probably going to need plastic surgery. Our counterpart colleague, Ben Duffy, said it's the worst cut he's seen in a fight that was allowed to continue. And I agree. And it's probably the worst cut I've ever seen, period. Like, I thought the Hobo Cop cut was bad. Fuck, this is terrible.
Ben's not wrong. Like, I think if they had stopped it at the end of the second round, you know, I think we all would have agreed, yeah, that's a bad cut. But like you said, it just continued to get worse to the point where absolutely it was the worst cut that we've ever seen with a fight that continued. And I'm with you in the end. Yeah. You know, I was halfway waiting for Joe Rogan to say that it looked like a goat's vagina. You remember him doing that with Marvin Eastman? Oh my good hell.
Yes.
I just wanted to see if he would be willing to do that, but no, goats. I think Joe's retired that one because he got so much crap where people were asking him, "Dude, what are you doing looking at goats' vaginas?" But
it's just John Jones. I'm kidding.
But yeah, along those lines, I feel kind of bad because I feel like that cut took away from Norma's performance because Norma looked good.
Oh, she looked fantastic. You ever, you know, when you had like a pizza party in school as a young kid, and then they would extra slice the pizza really small so everyone could definitely get a slice. Yeah. One of those little slices looks like what was on Aldana's head. She literally like from afar, it looked like a slice of pizza on her head. She looked like Wilson. The volleyball was just a blood. Like,
okay.
She looked like Wilson. Like, I just, not to mention her eyes were swollen shut from Norma Dumont. Norma looked really good, man. Her ability to just be on her bike for 3 rounds and counterpunch. Her leg kicks look good. She would stop, plant, throw her kicks, or either, you know, throw a 1-2 combination. Her jab looked good. Her vision looked good. She fights with her hands down, but she's got the athleticism and the vision and the counterpunching skills and the back foot game to make this work. It was very reminiscent of Natalia Silva, who we were speaking about earlier. I love when fighters can be on the back foot and land their offensive combinations and then just get back on their bike and not get touched. What do you think about Irene's game plan?
So I think it was more execution than it was strategy, because Irene she chased. She was not cutting any angles. She chased. And I think if she had been more technical, I think that she probably is a superior boxer. If she could have been able to trap Norma against the fence and maybe box her up, I think that she could have won the fight, but the execution was so damn poor. And I think Norma was counting on that. Because Irene walked right into what Norma wanted her to do.
Shout out to Irene for just like, she's taken a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
In her fights. Like, who was it? Was it Macy Chiasson that was just like leg kicking her to absolute bits, or was that Carol Hossa? I think it was Carol
Hossa. With Chiasson, it was the up kick from hell that she stopped.
She was losing against Chiasson up until that point where she did that like up kick to the liver. And then Nunes beat the shit out of her, and Norma kind of did as well. Shout out to her though for pressing that third round and pressing the action, even though she lost it. She was just like freaking Jason Voorhees, dude. There was like nothing. A bullet wouldn't have stopped her. I mean, a hatchet didn't. I'm just confused about her progression and then her regression as a fighter. Like against Ketlin Vieira, when she blasted her in the pocket, we were just like, let's freaking, put the jetpack on her and let's, shoot her up to the top. But I think we're starting to see that her game, I mean, she is a planted pocket boxer.
Yes.
And she doesn't have a front foot game. She has no kicking game. She doesn't check leg kicks. She didn't check kicks in this fight. And Norma could have had even more success with that. I'm just not seeing the improvements. And Lobo Jim was like super hyped up going into this event. And after their, two of their bigger name female fighters kind of laid an egg. I'm not sure what Aldana could have done differently. Maybe, she was just walking into everything like, hey, at one point, like maybe just take the center of the octagon and, call on Norma and do something else instead of just plodding forward. I'm not sure what the plan. Again, if that was the plan A, where's the plan B? I
don't think she ever has a plan B.
It's on the shelf in the grocery store near the contraceptives. I don't know. Like, I don't know where.
No, she got lucky with Hossa in the sense that Hossa was willing to just stand in the pocket and give her the fight that she needed to make the comeback, because Hossa beat the shit out of her in the first round of that fight and then, made the comeback. Aldana's not going to take the win. She will, if she's given it, yeah, she'll take it, but she's not going to forcibly rip it out of her opponent's hands. She cannot force her game upon them. It's got to be given to her. And don't get me wrong, if they give her the fight, holy shit, she's fun, but it obviously limits her ceiling. And I think that the UFC is kind of realizing that at this point. So my thoughts are they probably just start giving her fights that are fun. She's going to be the women's bantamweight version of Drew Dober for the next little bit, if you ask me.
Yeah, and that's fine.
No, yeah,
she embraced it. I mean, she's posting the cuts on social media. She's a fucking dog. And I don't want to be too hypercritical of her skills, and maybe Norma Dumont's back foot game with her counterpunching and her speed, and maybe Norma is just very, very good and is going to be the next champion and is the second best bantamweight outside of Kayla Harrison. That could totally be it as well. For Norma Dumont next, who do you think she should fight?
I say Chiasson is appropriate. Chiasson's coming off a big win over Mayra Bueno Silva. And we've got a couple of fights coming up at UFC 307 that are going to help paint the picture for bantamweight as well. There's obviously the title fight, and then I'm feeling very positive that if Harrison Rex, who's it that Harrison's fighting? Is it Vera?
Ketlin Vieira, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if she wrecks Vera, Harrison's getting the next title shot. I feel very confident about that. So I think it would make sense that if Dumont and Chiasson were to square off, winners got next of whoever Harrison fights for the title. Well,
I like it.
I'm kind of tipping my hand there, obviously, but
yeah. Well, I mean, too bad for Norma, because imagine you're Norma Dumont and you're cutting your teeth in the UFC. You got knocked out by Megan Anderson in your debut, and then you have kind of gone on and really gotten better at fighting, got the weight cut stuff dialed in. You're making 135, and then Kayla Harrison, just like the Kool-Aid man, just fucking kicks in the door and is like, "Hey, motherfuckers, I'm here."
Yeah.
And you're just, gosh damn it, like it's just kind of one of those. It's just you kind of got to feel for her, right?
You know what? At the same time, though, because women's bantamweight has been it's been a shit show for so long. I don't want to throw any shade at Raquel Pennington because she's a champion, she deserves to be, but it's been a division nobody really cares for since Nunes retired, and I feel like there actually might be a little bit of excitement brewing at this point. And a lot of that has to do with Harrison. But, the fact that Dumont looks like she could be a viable title challenger if she gets another one, something like that, it actually looks like a division people could start taking some interest in. I'm not saying that it's going to be men's bantamweight by any mean, where there's just killers in shark-infested water everywhere. But it looks like there might be some intrigue there.
Sure. And I mean, let's be clear, women's bantamweight is the worst division in the UFC.
It is.
But that doesn't mean that it can't be fun.
Exactly.
And when you've got Norma Dumont fighting the way she fought, when you've got the viral pictures going around of the giant gash on Aldana's head, like this is one of the bigger moments from this fight card. And that's why we're talking about it. Yep. And so clearly she's doing the right thing. Norma just needs to keep doing what she's doing. I like the Macy Chiasson fight. I have her matched up against the loser of Raquel Pennington and why can't I remember her name? I'm thinking of the Venezuelan Vixen. I got her nickname, but I can't think of her name. Pena. I think that's the fight that's a totally, viable fight, co-main event on a random fight night in the Apex, because that's what they're going to be. The loser of that fight is going to be delegated to. I also wouldn't be surprised if Pena if she loses, she goes away forever because she's already been sitting on the bench forever. So if it just depends. So I think any of those three girls is the best fight. And I think we're going to probably see Norma Dumont in a title fight by the time this time of year in 2025. I'd bet money on it. The division is kind of shallow and Norma's going to probably just keep winning fights. Yeah, no, she's proven to be one of the more intelligent fighters, period, because every fight she walks into, she's had a unique game plan for each of her opponents because she's not beating them all the same way. So that's saying this is her best striking performance.
Oh, easily.
This is her best striking, because usually when, and I'm going to steal this from Ben, but usually when the bullets start flying, she calls herself a Sonda striker, but when the bullets start flying, she's getting in that clinch and she's looking for takedowns.
Yep.
Didn't shoot a single takedown this fight. Showed her back foot striking game, which is just another wrinkle. She's got more than one tool in her belt. But if you ask me what her favorite tool was, it'd be a hatchet.
Or her head. No, you know what? Kudos to her. She is the best fighter that the UFC has accidentally developed, because I don't think they had any intention of her developing into the fighter that she has become. But son of a bitch, if they didn't actually play her right.
They're like, hey, your division is gone.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, I'll just go down one more and I'll get in better shape and I'll get better at fighting. I mean, kudos to her for doing that. And like, if you're a woman's bantamweight and you're listening to this podcast, probably not a thing. But if you are, the best thing for you to, I mean, just stick to itiveness. Just be there, train your ass off, show up for your fights, win your fights, and that's how you can fight for a title at women's bantamweight. Really great performance by Norma. That wraps up the first segment of the show, Out with the Old. We have no ending segment of the show, so I guess the middle segment of the show becomes the ending segment of the show. What's hot? This past weekend, the UFC has announced UFC 308. They have solidified and made official Jones and Miocic. But more importantly, probably for me and you, they also booked a rematch in the co-main event of that fight. Michael Chandler is rematching Charles Oliveira. He has given up the Conor McGregor wet dream. He's done. And his career is back on the right path, if you ask me. And he's fighting Oliveira. What do you think about Michael Chandler deciding to come back and fight Oliveira in this rematch?
So first of all, slip of the tongue, 309 actually. 308.
309.
309 is MSG because 307 is Salt Lake City and then 308 is Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi.
I have to wait longer for that. Darn it. 309. Correcting me.
No
Thank
big
you.
Deal. Hey, man. It keeps coming at us, and I'm not going to bitch about it. But yeah. Anyway, Chandler's making the right move. I think it's late, but he's making the right move. He basically called Conor a bitch, and I don't think that he actually believes that. I think that's just him attempting to get Conor to buckle down and actually fight. Because if Conor ever does fight Chandler, that's easily Chandler's biggest payday. So I get where he wants that, but he has to move on, because I'm of the opinion Conor's done. I don't think he wants to fight anymore. I think he wants to continue to get attention. You know, we all know that Conor's an attention whore. And that's fine. You know, I get it. He makes more money the more attention that's put on him, but he doesn't want to fight. I in my heart of hearts, I don't believe he wants to fight. Even when he was fighting, it wasn't the fight that he loved. It was the attention. It was the money. It was the fame. Fighting was just a means to get there. You know, and there's people that do love fighting. I'm not saying that, oh, well, everybody's only after the money and the fame. You know, I get that's a perk for some people, but there are those out there who legit love to fight. And I don't believe that Conor's one of those people, especially at this point, because, you know, with the amount of fame that he has had, I think he's kind of gotten fat and lazy. You know, that's not to say he wouldn't whoop my ass with minimal effort. He easily would, but you know, he's not a premier athlete anymore in terms of fighting. So, yeah, I think he's done. Chandler made the right move. I do think that rematch with Oliveira is going to be a lot of fun. The first fight was fantastic. I mean, it wasn't that long, but son of a bitch, who cares? That was great. So yeah, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see Chandler get back into the cage before he wastes whatever years he has left, because I think a lot of people forget Chandler's not young. You know,
No.
He fought an entire career over in Bellator before he came over here. So if he wants to have any good fights, he needs to get moving in a hurry. So I'm glad to see him do it.
And when you say he's not young, it's not only that he's not young, like in human age years to be a high level athlete at men's lightweight, but he's also not young in MMA years. And you look at the damage accrued with the Eddie Alvarez fights and you know, the Brett Primus fights and all of his career at Bellator before coming over here to the UFC. I say here like I'm part to the UFC. Well, when I say here, it's going to be because Bellator, I mean, there's not even anything to talk about. The Habib cam is like the highlight of Bellator MMA in 2024. Yeah, he's doing the right thing. If my buddy and I were texting after the whole thing went down and he's like, Conor's done, bro. And I'm like, dude, you could scroll back in this text to a year ago. And I said that a year ago. Like, he was done when he was recording The Ultimate Fighter. I think if he could snap his fingers and have weigh-ins done and a fight ready to go and a post-fight press conference, he'd be in it for that. But I don't think Conor wants to put in all the work to get into a weight-cutting position.
No, he doesn't.
He's got, and I don't blame him. If I had 1/20th of the money that Conor McGregor had, I wouldn't be getting fucking punched. I mean, I don't get punched in the face for a living, thank God. But if I had 1/20th of his money and I wasn't a pro MMA fighter, I'd stop getting punched in the face and invest my money elsewhere. Yep. So I don't blame him. Like, he's, you know, him. A lot of Conor too. What I've kind of realized about him is, and I think people are starting to realize this, the fans, that he wasn't ever playing a character. He is really truly the guy who he is when he's doing his pre-fight banter, and if not, that's the guy he's become. The character that he played is definitely the guy he's become.
If anything, all he did was take his own character and turn it up to 11. That's it. That, you're right. That is who he is.
He, you know, the crazy brash person that he always wanted to be, and like, he's become that person. And I mean, he lived his dream. So why the hell would you be fighting Michael Chandler? There's way too much risk. And low key, like Michael Chandler with the right game plan, like the way he approached round 2 and 3 of Dustin Poirier, could probably go out there and out wrestle Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
especially you know, the dude was on PEDs. Like, he used PEDs to recover from that injury, and then continuously probably still use them. And I'm pretty sure he used them for the movie he did.
Yeah. We've all seen that that promotional video where he's sitting there twitching nonstop with Jake Gyllenhaal right next to him. Yeah. No, he's 100%.
He's doing one of these.
Yes, I'm not going to say why he was, because, you know, like you said, he very well could have been using them for recovery. You know, I don't know. That's not my business, but he was on something.
And he's also got the like, what seems to be forgotten is like that incident in Miami in the arena with the bathroom. He's just got a lot of weird stuff. And I think he had like some issue like in Croatia or something with like someone on his yacht. Like, he's consistently got outside of the cage stuff going on, and it's not even outside of the cage stuff. It's just his life stuff. Like, he's not living the lifestyle of
the fact he's talking about running for the president of Ireland. Like, I don't think he's actually going to do that, but, you know, he's throwing that kind of crap out there. The UFC is a vehicle to keep him in the headlines for him at this point. That's all.
The last fighter I can recall running for wanting to be a politician and the stage of their career they were at totally means they're done. And I'm thinking of BJ Penn when he wanted to be governor of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if that
smaller scale, Tito, you know, he ran for Huntington Beach, you know, or something like that.
He pulled out like after a week of running. He's like, this is too much fucking work. I'm out of here. Like, yeah, I would pay so much money to watch Tito Ortiz debate someone.
Yeah,
I would put that on a pay-per-view.
Tito gets so much crap, and I'm not going to say it's not deserved, but Tito is fun just because every now and then he does pull a nugget of gold out. Because, like, I mean, let's face it, his his reaction to Ken Shamrock telling him that he was going to beat him into the living death was one of the best moments of early Zuffa UFC history. You know, just cackling the way that he did. But those gold nuggets are getting to be more and more rare, and at this point, it's yeah. I don't want Tito to go away. I know a lot of people do, but I still get some enjoyment out of him.
We're on a tangent, but have you seen the video of him? He was like doing some in-ring speaking, like at some like low-level MMA show, and he does like the mic toss, and he throws the mic, and it fucking falls and hits him on the head. Like, I'll send you the video if you haven't seen it. I'll find it. It's so
That's pure
fucking...
Tito, though.
He tries to do the mic drop, like he tries to be cool and throw the mic over his head. He throws it up, he takes one step forward, and it lands right on his fucking head. And I'm just like, dude.
That's why I don't want Tito to go away.
It makes like a noise when it hits him, and you know, like it's just really funny. And for Conor, he's toast, man. He's not coming back. Even like his reaction to the Michael Chandler saying, and Michael Chandler, when did you watch his video on social media where he's like, I've known about this for 4 weeks. Yep. And now I'm coming out about it because Dana White kind of broke the news with Barstool, I believe it was. Conor with his he just rages out, just lashing out, you know, give me a date. And it's like, dude, just do BKFC stuff. Just promote your BKFC. It's a great fight for Chandler. Oliveira and him was an incredible fight, crazy back and forth war until Chandler got finished. And I think it's a winnable fight for Chandler. And I think clearly a winnable fight for Oliveira. This puts him with Michael Chandler and the good grace he has. If he goes out there and finishes Oliveira, he's fighting for a title.
Yeah. No, so, I agree with that. Like, do I think in terms of a meritocracy that's the right thing to do? No, I don't. But ever since Chandler has come over from Bellator, he has been captain UFC 100%. And Dana will reward somebody for being that rah-rah type of guy. Yeah.
He's done his part. And shout out to both the guys, because Oliveira doesn't have to take this fight, but Oliveira, he's not stupid. He knows, hey, I go out there and finish Michael Chandler again. That probably gets me a title fight. Or that puts me in the place to like fight Max Holloway if he loses in a rematch for the BMF title. Mm-hmm. So smart play by these guys. I'm glad they took the rematch. In my opinion, it's clearly the best fight on the card. Like so far from what we know now, it's better than the main event.
That damn main event. This is one of those cases where I wish Uncle Dana would live up to the idea that, you know, he says, we give the fans what we want. We give the fans what they want. No, you are not. No, you are not. We want to see Tom Aspinall and John Jones fight to unify the heavyweight title, because you've got one guy who's the interim champ. You've got one guy who's considered to be the, we'll say, permanent champ. And Stipe has been sitting on the shelf for close to 4 years at this point. All the respect in the world to Stipe, you know, but there are guys who have been busting their ass over the last 3 years for that opportunity that he just said, I'm sitting on the side. You don't reward guys for sitting on the sidelines, as far as I'm concerned, you know? So I'll watch it because I'm one of those guys that the UFC has.
Oh. We're watching it. We're watching it. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. I'm saying, you know, it's not like I'm about to go off and protest. You know, the UFC's like, yeah, what do you do? No, they know I'm not going to, but I'll bitch about it, and I'll bitch about it nice and loud.
I'm a sucker, but I will also bitch about it. And that was my really terrible segue into the main event of this card, UFC 309. UFC announced Stipe and Jones, and we all knew it was coming. Jones did an interview in the Sphere looking like Calamity Sam with a very large cowboy hat on. And he said he's retiring after the Stipe fight. So, like, why don't the UFC just strip both belts and then just make this like a fight, a super fight, whatever fight, create a random title, a heavyweight super legends belt, just make like a one-off belt. Do whatever you can do to not delegitimize Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, because he's the future.
Go to the UFC.com right now.
Present, but he's the future too.
Yeah, no, he's the. You could not convince me that Tom Aspinall is not the best heavyweight in the division. John Jones knows that. Want me to tell you why John Jones knows that? Because John Jones ain't fighting him.
Yep.
This is the least confident I've ever seen John Jones. There's never been a guy where John Jones has said no to. He said no to Tom Aspinall.
Yep.
There's no way if John Jones right now picks up the phone. John Jones has Dana White's phone number. They talk on the phone. They have each other's private. If John Jones picks up the phone right now and says, Dana, 309, I don't want to fight Stipe. I want to fight Tom Aspinall. Dana's going to go, you sure, bud? Okay.
That's 100% true. 100%.
So we know this is a hand-picked opponent, and that's fine. I'm not the biggest John Jones fan, but I will also outrightly say that John Jones deserves to fight whoever he wants. He can fight whoever he wants to fight. But the Stipe thing's lame. Don't try to sell me. It's literally wolf tickets. Don't try to sell me this fight. You're selling me wolf tickets. And what they're doing is unfortunately delegitimizing Tom Aspinall, and the UFC has lost. They lost Francis Ngannou to John Jones contractual bullshit type stuff. And they you lost Francis. Jones is out the door, and then this is what you're doing to your most violent dude in the UFC. Out there finishing everyone, and this is what it's just very strange. Be really funny if honestly in their primes, like Stipe was always a hard fight for Jones.
Oh yeah. No, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to disrespect Stipe. I'm not trying to.
Stipe's good.
See, Stipe, he's got a legit case to be the best heavyweight the sport has seen. He's got a very good case for that. But like I said, in order to remain relevant, you got to show up, and he hasn't for years at this point. You know what? That's not hyperbole or hyperbole, huh? Hyperbole. Yeah. I'm struggling with my words. Anyway, it's literally been years. That's, the UFC is a business, and it's in the business of entertaining people. And the people that it's entertaining are its fans. Stipe has not been doing that. So the fans are like, look, we don't care. That's a cold, hard truth, I understand Stipe has been in the sport for years as well, that he's put blood, sweat, and tears into this sport, but he hasn't for the last several years, whereas other people have been. And it's kind of a slap in the face to those. And at this point, specifically Tom, by just handing it to Stipe. And, I get what you're saying. John Jones has done enough in this sport that if he wants to fight Stipe, okay, let's let him fight Stipe. But
sure,
it is delegitimizing the heavyweight title, and it's delegitimizing Tom. So,
and for Dana White to die on this pound for pound hill that he has John Jones as ranked number one, well, last time I checked, I think Tom Aspinall is ranked number 7 pound for pound in the world, and he's the interim champion of the division. Go to UFC.com, go to the Sherdog rankings. I don't think Stipe is in the top 15 pound for pound right now. So you got 2 guys that are. One of them is the champion. One of them is the interim champion. What the fuck are we doing here, UFC?
By the way, fun fact. There is nobody on the roster that Stipe has fought. Everybody is either released or retired.
Don't know how fun that was, man. But thank you for the fact. That's the show, guys. Check the kick. Thank you so much, Dayne. Tell everyone that listens where they can find you, where you do all your stuff.
I'm on Sherdog along with Dev, and I'm also on Twitter at the Dayne Fox. Can't thank you enough for having me on here, man. It's been a blast. Looking forward to doing it again if you'll have me.
Oh yeah, totally, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. There's no fights this weekend, guys, so enjoy the show. UFC Paris coming up weekend after this one. We'll be here to talk about that. Thank you guys so much and enjoy the fights.